Good day, my young friends. In this lockdown period for VSK University BSc VI SEM students, I am discussing physics of material science and it is chapter 2. It comes in paper 6.2. Myself, Dr. M. Prabhugood, Associate Professor, Department of Physics, Vijayanagara College, Hospet. Chapter 2 is about bonding in solids. The bonding forces are of two types. An attractive force between atoms pulls them closer. Those are called negative forces. A repulsive force comes into action when the atoms are closer. It pulls them apart, and that is taken as positive force. And these two forces balance each other at one particular distance, and that distance between the atoms is called bond length. The bonds between atoms are called primary bonds. They are stronger bonds. The bond between molecules are called secondary bonds. These bonds are weaker. These are of two types, namely a hydrogen bond and van der Waals bond. Primary bonds. The bonds are between atoms gold. Ionic bond. We will discuss with the example of NaCl. In Na, in the outermost orbit, we got only one electron. Whereas in Cl, the outermost orbit consists 7 electrons. And sodium is eager to give that one electron because when in the last orbit 8 electrons are there. From octane rule we know that it is chemically inherent. Cl has got 7 electrons and it is very eager to take that one electron. So naturally a bond is formed between Na and Cl. That electron is transferred to Cl and Na becomes Na plus and Cl becomes Cl minus. And this ionic bond formed in NaCl has bond length 27.9 nanometer and bond strength 315 kilojoules per mole. And the following properties of ionic bonds are, you have to write, this will come for 5 marks question. You have to explain ionic bond and the properties of the ionic bonds. It is easy to describe and visualize. It exists in compounds which are composed of metallic and non-metallic elements. It termed as non-directional, that is, magnitude of the bond is equal in all directions around an ion. Ionic bonds are the strongest bonds. Ionic solids possess crystalline structure. Ionic materials are characteristically hard and brittle and furthermore electrically and thermally insulative. Polar liquids like water is a good solvent for ionic crystal. These are the properties of ionic bond compounds. Next comes covalent bond formed between non-metals due to the sharing of the valence electrons. We discussed that with the help of the methane. Carbon has got 4 valence electrons in the outermost orbit and it shares with hydrogen. Hydrogen has got 1 electron and each 1 electron of carbon is shared by 4 hydrogen atoms as shown in the figure. Carbon are shown with white, long big circle, and hydrogen are shown with black dot circle. And there is a sharing of the electron. Covalent bond compounds have got following properties. Covalent bond is directional. Covalent bonding can either very strong or very weak bonds depending upon the atoms involved in the bond. Covalent bond compounds, solids, generally leads to low melting and boiling points compared to the ionic solids. Example, CCl4 melting point is 296 Kelvin. Non-polar liquids like CCl4, benzene are good solvents for covalent molecules. Covalent solids are hard, brittle and possess crystalline nature. Different physical properties of the solid material are due to the bonding type. Very important is covalent bonds, we generally say they are less stronger than ionic bonds, but some covalent bond compounds are very strong than ionic bonds and some are weak depending upon the atoms involved in the bond. Metallic bond, you know the metals got plenty of valency electrons, and that valency electrons comes out of the atom and they become free electrons. So metals contains plenty of free electrons and they are moving in the metals. And there is an electron cloud. And the atoms of the metal, by losing the valence electrons, they become positive ions. And naturally, there is a attractive force between the positive metal ion with the electron cloud. And that leads to the metallic bonding. The properties of the metallic bonds are: the metallic bond is non-directional in character. Metallic bonds are good conductors, forming electron cloud and having high melting point and low ionization energies. Metallic crystals are ductile and strong due to the ability of the bond electrons to make and break bonds readily. They have characteristic properties such as bright luster, high electrical and thermal conductivity, malleability, ductility, and high tensile strength. They can easily form thin sheets, and ductility, we can make that compounds metals thin wires, and they got high tensile strength, mechanical strength. Metal tends to have high melting points and boiling points, suggest strong bonds between the atoms. And when you come to the secondary bonds are formed in molecules. There are two types hydrogen bonds, and that we can discuss with water molecules. In water molecules, oxygen, two hydrogen are paired with oxygen, and the oxygen, the electron is shared with hydrogen, but it spends more time on oxygen. For that reason, oxygen shows negative and hydrogen shows positive. And when water molecules comes together, there is a attractive force between positive hydrogen atom with negative oxygen atom, and there is a weak bond is formed between two water molecules, that is shown in the figure, and this is called hydrogen bond. The properties of hydrogen bonds are as follows. Hydrogen bonds are directional and have low melting point. Hydrogen bond solids do not have any valency electrons, and they are not good conductors. They are weak or they are insulator. Hydrogen bonds are stronger than dispersion bonds but are weak than primary bonds. Hydrogen bond solids may be crystalline or non-crystalline. Hydrogen bonded solids are soluble both in polar and non-polar solvents. Next comes van der Waals bond or dispersion bond, that we discuss with a noble gas atom. You see this noble single atoms, they are the positive center of the atom coincides with the negative center of the atom. For that, they are neutral in charge. But when they are come together, due to polarization, there is a shift in the positive center of the atom with the negative center of the atom. And due to this, there is a attractive force between the two atoms, that is shown in figure B. And the properties of van der Waals bonds are as follows. It is very weak bond compared to other bonds. It is non-directional. The binding energy of the molecular crystal is very small, and hence it has low melting and boiling points. Organic compounds like helium and noble compounds like helium, neon, etc. are inherent and poor in electrical conductivity. Thank you.